All right, guys. So I got another video here. I know I haven't uploaded in probably over a year. Just had a lot of stuff going on, different stuff happening in life, but haven't been too big on uploading. Just it's busy. So this is my wife's Eco. You've probably seen it on the channel before. It's definitely had a couple of changes. Mainly the wheels are one of them. It had these Avids on it before. Long story, but now it has these Superspeeds, which are a forged wheel, and it's this dope, like misty chrome color. So super cool. So got those on the car. It's not what the video is about, but the video is about the snow methanol kit. It's the like 2.5 stage kit, I think is what it's called. We bought it from, or she bought it from EMS, Engineered Motorsports Solutions. So far, it's been a great experience with those guys. Ryan Martin over there is tuning the car anyway, so he did the initial tune, and he's going to be doing this tune as well. But just to kind of give you a rundown on the car, it's full bolt-on car, full exhaust. It's got catalytic converters, so it is, compliant there. But just to kind of give you a rundown, so snow kit, basically. The snow kit does not come with any form of relay. You can buy their relay if you want to pay all that money for it. But we ordered a relay off of Amazon. It was like 2 in a pack for like 12 or 14 bucks. So that's what we used to wire that up. She did some of the wiring. She did all the wiring inside the car. She ran most of the wiring. I did some of the wiring out here, like here, and the solenoid and the pump in the back, and we'll get to all that in a few minutes. But just to kind of give you a rundown on how these are set up in case that's why you're here to look at the video. So starting here, we have this white wire is just a trigger wire. So the only reason that white wire is there is to trigger the relay to turn on, and the relay will then send power from the battery to the kit. So that's why this isn't elaborate here. This wire here, this black wire that goes back to the relay, is the power wire. As you can see, there is a fuse in line, and then on the battery there is a ground over there for the relay. This boost sensor here, this is the external sensor. They do have a kit, I believe they still make it with an internal boost sensor. It doesn't matter, whatever you want to use. These cars, there's not a lot of ways to use a boost reference. I was going to use potentially, over by the master cylinder, but it looks like that's a pump back there. So you can't, it's never going to see boost. So initially I had teed off the wastegate down here, this one. You can't do that because that's when you're using a boost controller, which these cars use, and it starts bleeding off boost going to the wastegate reference, if you will. You might be running, in this case, we were running about 12 pounds is what the access port said. So it was about 12 pounds of the manifold, but this was only seeing about 4. So basically what happens is that boost controller bleeds off boost, so you're not going to get an accurate boost reference. So I've got it on the compressor side of the turbo here. You can see it comes up here. I left that line just in case I have to cut it. And then if this doesn't work, there's another option I'll show you here in a second. But this car does have the CV Fab charge pipes. So CV Fab charge pipes, factory blow-off valve. It is just vent to atmosphere. These cars are speed density, so it doesn't hurt anything. Anyway, so we have this line here. This is the actual ejector. So the injector's there in the bottom. You have this fitting here. You have this, it's like it's like a check valve basically. And then it comes up to your solenoid. This is the solenoid that opens and allows the methanol in. You can ground it here to this ground. I just use the ground that the car uses just to make sure, because if you can ground an engine there, it's going to be fine. The line itself runs down under the car. It's secured to the fuel line. It follows all the fuel lines to the back of the car until the fuel lines go to the tanks. The tank's on the left side of or the right side of the car. And then I had to run the lines to the left side under the car. When I got to the back, I ran it up and over the subframe, and I tied it in with the charcoal canister on the back under the vehicle. So that way, if it's good enough to run fuel vapors to the front, it's good enough to run methanol to the front. You do not want to run these lines into the car. Methanol is odorless, it's colorless. If it creates a fire, you want as much time as you can to get out of the car. So do not run your lines through the car, run them under the car, run them outside the car. Granted, I'm not a professional, but I don't want to be anywhere near methanol if it heats up and catches fire. It has a low flash point. It can be somewhat volatile, if you will. And also this car will be running pure methanol. It's not going to run like a 50-50 mix in the tank. So the car will be on pump gas, is obviously the main fuel that runs the engine, and then the injection will be 100% methanol. So we have this here. It goes down. We're going to go to the back of the car and talk about the tank setup, and then we'll talk about what's inside the car. So as we work back here, we have obviously all this stuff out of the trunk. There's all that crap. But this is the tank. It's not mounted right now. We'll get to that in just a second. So this is the line that goes to the front. Here's the tank. I just have the zip tie here holding the kind of the slack in the line. I like to leave extra line in case I have to cut it, remove it, do anything. So we have a little bit extra so you don't have to rerun the wire or put in a bunch of taps. So we have this, it's mounted to the side of the car. Also, the way this is set up, we should be able to run a spare back here as well. So you can still maintain that if you road trip the car. As well as the other thing that kind of sucks is we need to build something around here, around the tank, because you have this sensor here for the level, and then you have this here, which is where your methanol comes out into your pump. You want to make sure that nothing's going to hit that in the car, especially if you like go get groceries or put anything in your trunk. So with this particular kit, we're just going to build something around it later at another point. So we have this. This is the tank, obviously. There's one of the mounts for it. Once you get over far enough, there's not a lot of space. And by space, I mean it's basically the way the car is kind of constructed. It goes down. Let's see if I can show you on the side. Yeah, so it's like this on that side too. So it basically goes down, and there's kind of like a false floor here almost, right here. So you can't really mount it. So this other side is only mounted in two spots, like here and here. You can build something, whatnot. It's freaking tight, man. It's not going to go anywhere. If you're worried about it, you can always do something later. But clearly, I'm not that worried about it, and neither is she. So tank's mounted. Now, I said I had to take the tank out of the car. And here's why. So this level sensor here does not come in the tank when you buy it. I believe the AEM kits do. So they tell you have to drill this. They tell you to drill it with a step bit. You drill it with a step bit. They tell you this little rubber thing, the white rubber, is going to prevent this thing from leaking. Well, that's a lie. So basically, in this case, I snugged it up, it leaked, I tried tightening it, I got to the point where it would get so tight that the bolt would essentially back off. It would like pop, and almost like it was stripped, and it would still leak. So E6000 apparently is methanol safe. So essentially, took this out, put a thick layer under it, put the rubber seal, put methanol between the seal and this nut. Well, there's also a washer. And then basically just covered it all in E6000. Put it outside in the sun yesterday for about 7-8 hours. And then it's been curing. So tested it with water. It's not leaking. So the other thing too is if you do this and you buy this kit, I don't recommend putting it on this end. I recommend putting it on the side. The side is flat. Okay. If you look at this and you look down, it's angled. So that could potentially be why. It could be a user error, but there's nothing in the instructions. The instructions are kind of vague and they're not helpful in that matter. So if you buy this kit, you don't have to run the level sensor. You just got to check it. My recommendation is if you buy a kit that's clear, you can see how much is in it that way. Also, if you buy the pre-mixed stuff, a lot of it's colored, so it'll make it really easy to see. If you run pure methanol, you can always dye it in some way to make sure you can see it. But anyway, this is going to bolt here. As you see, this is unhooked. So I have these connectors here. These are a game changer. You can buy these on Amazon. To get this to focus. Let's see. Really? So that Essentially, this is a heat shrink with solder in it. So that silver piece of solder, so when you heat it up with a heat gun, much like that one we're going to use right there, it'll melt the solder. And when it melts the solder, it will solder your wires together. So then you don't have to worry about it. So that way our level sensor will be wired up. Your solenoid up front is wired in with this, with the pump, so they turn on at the same time. So recommendations, definitely get those little solder joints. You can crimp connect it if you want. I use the solder joints on a radio too that I installed in another vehicle this weekend, and it's been fantastic. So those work. Okay. Also, the car's not on a Tomei anymore. It did have a Tomei at one point. It is not, because that is loud. And my neighbors hate us for that. Also, too, I wanted to point out, see this purge valve? There's a company that makes a boost reference for that. You can pull that purge valve off and then use the boost reference and still use your purge valve. You may have to modify it a little bit. I think you have to cut the tube and run like some form of like hose over it, like vac hose. I'm not going to do that unless I have to. I'm going to run the other one because, I mean, these kits are already expensive enough when you're talking $800 to buy a kit. That doesn't include any methanol. That doesn't include the extra wiring, the solenoids. That doesn't include the tune, any of that. It's kind of expensive. So I'm going to try to save that. So we get into the car here. Like I said, she did all the wiring on this, and she did a pretty bang up job. So here's the gauge. Here's the snow gauge. Essentially, it's wired up so you can see the car itself is off. But if we turn the car on, you can see the gauge comes on, which is super dope. So we have that there. Obviously, the access port uses the vent clip mount. Essentially, all the wiring comes in behind. This pops off. This is a glow shift, like gauge holder that fits in the vent. So she took it out. She popped out the vent itself. The gauge holder fits in. The wiring runs down and behind here on the dash. So all the wiring out front comes through the firewall. All the wiring from the back runs down this section on the rocker on the inside, up the dash, around up here. And then additionally, the gauge does require one ground. There's a chassis ground behind that kick panel there that you can use. That's what we used. It worked great. So as you can see, the gauge powers up. There's a purge option on it. I purged mine a little bit different. But also, like when you test it, Snow gives you an opportunity or an option and tells you, you know, you can purge it before you run the jet, for lack of a better term. I think it's called a nozzle on the front. So you can take it out, test it, make sure everything's purged, everything's working before you put it in. Essentially, we purged it a couple times while it was idling, and then basically the methanol needs to start at a certain boost for the car. I just basically modified it in the gauge just to make sure, turned it on around 5 psi, so that we would start spraying, and we would know that there wasn't any air in the lines. In terms of that, when you want it to start, when you want it to have full spray, talk to your tuner. Your tuner will tell you. They'll tell you what size nozzle to use. In our case, we're using a 6 nozzle, which is the largest nozzle that's available in the kit. There are larger ones out there, but this is the largest one in this kit. And then we start spraying around 15 psi, and then full is at 25. So it's basically a taper, right? So at 15 psi, it'll start spraying, and then at 25 psi, it will spray full blast as much methanol as that nozzle will allow. So if we were to run, say, 40 pounds, it would spray the same amount of methanol at 40 pounds that it would at 25 pounds. Granted, it's a stock motor. We're not going to run that. The stock turbo is pretty much out of steam at 25 anyway, so not an issue. But talk to your tuner about that. Talk to your tuner about your methanol mixtures. You can buy the stuff off the shelf. Snow, for example, makes it. VP makes it. You can buy that stuff. It'll tell you what the percentages are, or if you run that, make sure your tuner knows what you're running. Or in our case, we have to run full per our tuner recommendation. So you have to find it out there. I think that's about everything on this. I just wanted to cover kind of how we ran everything. Hoping this video will help some people out. There wasn't a lot of information on this for the S550 chassis EcoBoosts. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys have. I know the Ducati video that I had, there's a lot of questions that's popped up on that, and I still get in there and answer it. If you have something that you need some more technical questions on, you can leave a comment and then let me know. Like, you're going to shoot me a message on Instagram, and I'll keep an eye out on my Instagram for it, because I do have an Instagram for the channel, but I'm only active there if I get an alert. Sometimes I don't get alerts. So feel free to reach out with questions on this. I'm not an expert in methanol at all. Like, this is our first kit we've ever installed. I've done a little bit of research on it, but if you have questions, like I said, hit me up. I'll be happy to answer it. I don't think I'm going to add anything else to this video. I'll probably do very minimal, if no editing, and probably just upload it. But yeah, if you guys have questions, hit me up. I'll be happy to help. See you guys. So as I'm editing this video, I didn't completely finish everything on this. It was another video I should have done, but we've already gotten rid of the car, and you'll see some information about that later. But what I ended up doing was going with this boost tap here from American Muscle. And essentially what it does is when there's some customer photos in here, which are actually really good. That on the throttle body there, like we had talked about, right here, you basically just pull the PCV hose off. You'll take the PCV end off of it, and then it'll connect with this hose, and then this will be your boost reference, or however you want to set it up. And then there's an additional boost tap if you wanted to run a boost gauge or something like that. But yeah, just to kind of show you, and you can actually cover it, use the engine cover on it as well. And this is just some customer photos here, just for what they used. But I did want to point that out, since I did happen to miss that in the video. But like I said, the boost tap is what you really want to run from the reference, because then it will allow the boost directly from the manifold. So it's going to be the most accurate, because if you close the throttle body and let off the throttle, there could still be some boost in the pipe that it's registering. Or if you put it in the compressor, same thing. It can register there as well. I've noticed that between running the boost tap and then, tapping it off of the turbo itself. But I did want to cover that because I did miss that in the video. But thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And once again, if you have questions, throw them in the comments.